How's it going, everyone? This is the George here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Bumblebee. This is the last Transformer film to review before Transformers: Rise of the Beast comes out, which I'll be seeing tomorrow. But Bumblebee is the 2018 prequel slash reboot of the Transformer movies, directed by Travis Knight. This is the first time Michael Bay did not direct a Transformers film, and this film stars Haley Steinfeld and John Cena. And in this film, Optimus sends Bumblebee to Earth during the last days of Cybertron, and we see Bumblebee coming to Earth, how he lost his voice, the humans he befriended, the Decepticons that are trying to take him down. And this also takes place in the 1980s, which, for those of you who don't know, that's when the Transformers first came out. The original Transformers cartoon, the toys, the first movie came out in the 1980s. So it had a really big feel of the 80s. Like the soundtrack, like all the songs were from the 80s and it fit the film very well. And there's also references to other 1980s films such as The Breakfast Club. But with Bumblebee, before I get more into it, I'm going to be honest, when this film was announced, I was worried because the last two Transformer movies were big messes, and usually spin-off films like this shouldn't work. Usually spin-off films based on certain characters, even if they're likable characters such as Bumblebee, they usually don't work. But you got someone in Travis Knight who is, unlike Michael Bay, a fan of the Transformers, who is coming off of directing Kubo and the Two Strings, which is a phenomenal film, one of the best animated films to come out in the last 10 years, who understands characters and character moments. And there was some hope that this film could turn out very well, and it did. This is definitely one of the better Transformer films. And as much as I love the 2007 film directed by Michael Bay, despite how the sequels turned out, I would definitely say this is my favorite of the Transformer films. And rewatching this film, I I almost forgot because it's been a couple years since I've rewatched this film. A few years, 2 or 3 years, can't honestly remember. I forgot how good this film was, how good the characters were, how good the Transformers looked. Because Michael Bay, some of the Transformer designs in his films, while they might have looked cool, they were lacking in design at times. There wasn't a whole lot of color to them. Their faces were hard to see. And yeah, there were a couple Decepticons that the faces were hard to see, particularly the main Decepticon characters, Shatter and Dropkick. But even still, they were easier to see than most of the characters in the Michael Bay films. The designs in the Cybertron scenes, they looked like a combination of the Transformers War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron video games, and the G1 cartoon from the 1980s, which is still one of my favorite cartoons. I love that combination. I loved how Cybertron looked. The Transformers looked like Transformers. Bumblebee, even Bumblebee, this was a really good design for him. And while I always liked the Camaro design, I like that they went with the classic G1 design, even though it is combined as far as like his face with the Michael Bay films. But I never, but Bumblebee's design in the Bay films, his face was one of the more recognizable faces in those films. Um, But with this film, it felt like an almost 2 hour long Transformer episode that steps away from the Michael Bay formula. I would say if there's one thing that's definitely similar to the Michael Bay films, it is the military subplot where John Cena's character, Agent Burns, is trying to take down the Transformers. We see him at the beginning. He sees Bumblebee, and then one of the Decepticons comes in and takes out a lot of his men, trying to find Bumblebee, and he has this grudge, and he doesn't trust any of them. Even when the Decepticons come and say, "We're just here to take down Bumblebee. We want to work with you guys," he still doesn't trust them. But he also comes through at the end. But even the military subplot in this film, compared to the ones in the previous films, I would give a pass to, because in fairness, this is a reboot slash prequel, I guess you can say. I think it's definitely a reboot, but at the time, don't think they knew what direction they were going in. Are we going to reboot, or can we just make this a prequel to the Bay films? So you can understand why the military subplot is there, because it's the first time the Transformers are coming in. It's not like the fourth or fifth film where it's just the same thing over and over again after we saw the other events happen, and it's like, here we go again. Now, this is a film that still has human characters. The humans are a main focal point, but of the Transformer films, the human characters in this film are the least annoying. Haley Steinfeld's character, Charlie, is definitely the best human protagonist in these films. And I know this is a film about Transformers, it's fiction, but as far as human characters go, she was definitely the most relatable human character. She's going through a lot of changes in her life. Her father passed away. She hasn't moved on from it. She's starting to get distant from her mom. She's not getting along with some of the kids at her school. Struggling with work. She wants a car. Like, this is stuff anyone can relate to. Any one of these things that she's going through. But yeah, all the other human characters, while some of them may not have been necessary, they weren't completely annoying either. There are some characters that you think will be annoying. For example, her little brother, that, you know, by the end of the film, you think, oh, they didn't turn out to be annoying. Like, you think this character is going to be annoying, but they're not. Um, Her soon-to-be stepfather, Ron, you think at first, oh, this guy's going to be cringe. He's going to be a bad character, but he comes through at the end, and he's really not a bad guy. If there's one human character that did get on my, that almost got close to being on my nerves, and thankfully he's not in the film that much, is this character named Powell, who's fascinated with the Transformers, who just wants to use their technology, who right away is like, yeah, let's make an alliance with these Decepticons, even though John Cena's character is like, they're called Decepticons. Like, can you really trust them? And even he's self-aware that Powell's crazy. But luckily, this character is not in the film, and compared to the most annoying characters in the Michael Bay films, he's nothing compared to some of those characters. But even her neighbor Memo, who has a crush on her, you think, oh man, this guy's gonna be cringe. He's actually a pretty good, cool character in my opinion. He comes through at the end. He helps her deal with Bumblebee, deal with these Sector 7 characters, and I love the relationship between Bumblebee and Charlie in this film. It's a great dynamic, and it really helps her character grow. Now, one thing I will say, even though this film does move away from the Michael Bay formula, it still reminds you of other films. And I'm not just talking about having references to The Breakfast Club or any other films that came out in the 1980s. I'm talking about the fact that this is gonna get has gotten compared to Iron Giant and E.T. And I love those films. Iron Giant's one of my all-time favorite anime films. And the film's still very good. But this is the Transformers. There are so many Transformer cartoons, video games, comic books throughout the years that you could have easily maybe tried putting into this film. And I get it, it's not a big Transformer film. This isn't called Transformers Escape from Cybertron, Transformers Arrival to Earth. This is about Bumblebee, and the main focus is going to be on Bumblebee. But at the same time, you wish that they could do something different. That's just not like you're watching a live action Iron Giant film where Iron Giant transforms into a car and all that. Because the similarities are there. You have this kid that's going through a tough time, that's trying to find their place in the world, and they stumble upon this robot that they're trying to hide, and the government people are trying to take this robot. Same thing with ET. You're trying to hide this person, this alien, this robot, and they cause destruction in the home. You're trying to escape from the government people. The similarities are there. And again, that doesn't make it a bad movie. It's still a very good movie. You just wish there was something more unique to it. And again, because this is about Bumblebee, there's not a whole lot of Transformers in this film. There's a lot of Transformers at the beginning of the film when they're trying to escape Cybertron. You know, Optimus is in the film for a little bit, once again voiced by Peter Cullen. Peter Cullen, once again, does a great job. There's a lot of Decepticons at the beginning of the film as well. But once you get to Earth, it's really focused on Bumblebee, which is fine because this film's called Bumblebee. And you have these Decepticons that are trying to take trying to find him, Shatter and Dropkick, and Shatter is voiced by Angela Bassett, and she does a very good job voicing that character. And I will say this, Decepticons in this film feel more fleshed out than most of the Decepticons in the Michael Bay films. It felt like there were so many Decepticons in those films, but outside of Megatron, and because Megatron for most of those films was never the main antagonist, whoever was the main antagonist in that film, whether it was the Fallen, Sentinel Prime, outside of Megatron, the main antagonist of a certain Transformer film, who else was a main Decepticon? Soundwave and Starscream? It felt like Shockwave was wasted in Dark of the Moon. Shockwave had this cool design, but he kind of felt wasted. He was kind of just used as a way to for people to say he's the main antagonist when it was really Sentinel Prime. But yeah, Shatter and Dropkick felt like Decepticons you would see in a Transformers cartoon. And Angela Bassett, I love that like they made Angela Bassett sound like a female Decepticon. Dylan O'Brien does the voice of Bumblebee before Bumblebee loses his voice. He does a very good job voicing Bumblebee. Like really, outside of just the fact that the plot is something we've seen many times before in other films, and in some of those films it was done better. Bumblebee was still a very good movie. I like the characters in this film. I like that it's more colorful. The action, even though there's not a whole lot of action in this film, when the action happens, it's still fun. It's still cool to watch. The humor is actually funny and enjoyable. There's a lot more scenes that put a smile on my face. That will probably put a smile on your face if you haven't seen this film because you were so drained from the Michael Bay films. Like in the 1980 songs, like I said at the beginning, I love the usage of 1980 songs. And I will say, as far as score goes, yeah, the Transformers score in the previous films, it did have an epic feel to it. But I love that because this is a small scale Transformers film, this film relies on songs in the 80s because it also takes place in the 80s to give you that 80s feel, to give you that fun feel to it that I feel like has been needed in this franchise for some time. Yeah, Bumblebee is definitely, as of right now, my favorite of the Transformer films. I still love the first Michael Bay film. I still love the 1980s film. But as far as a film that was put together where characters didn't get on my this, like I said, this felt the closest to an episode of any Transformers cartoon. And I love that feel to it. I'm gonna give Bumblebee a B plus. I highly recommend you check it out. This is a solid film that I have a lot of fun with, and I highly recommend you check it out. Especially not just especially if you're a fan of the Transformer cartoons. And if you are a fan of Iron Giant and E.T., you'll probably enjoy this film as well, though not as much as if you enjoyed those films. But what are your thoughts on Bumblebee? Did you love it? Did you hate it? And what's your favorite of the Transformer films? Let me know in the comments down below. And I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe already if you haven't. Please share this with someone that does like Bumblebee, that likes Transformer cartoons and some of the Transformer movies. And I hope to see you guys real soon. Take care, everyone.